Charlotte Hughes is here in studio. Charlotte, tonight you're focusing on a Russian disinformation operation. It's been dubbed Storm 1516. What exactly is that, and what kind of disinformation is it spreading?
So Storm 1516 is the Microsoft name for a Russian disinformation operation that has been active since at least August of 2023. Earlier this year, French authorities announced they had identified almost 80 disinformation campaigns conducted by Storm 1516 between August of 2023 and March of 2025, as this France 24 article states. These were primarily targeting Ukraine and its allies. Now, the French agency countering foreign online attacks, which is referred to as Viginum, believes the primary goal of Storm 1516 is to discredit Ukraine in the hopes that this will erode Western supports for Kyiv. Of the disinformation campaigns it spotted, 35 were designed to damage the image of Ukraine as well as its leaders. These include false claims that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is stealing Western aid to Kyiv in order to make extravagant purchases, as this post alleges. There are also false allegations that his wife is guilty of trafficking and that his allies are murderers. The operation has also targeted Ukraine's allies, including Germany and France, and it does so particularly during large events such as the Paris Olympics and during election periods. In one instance, the team behind Storm 1516 created a false French political website offering voters a €100, I quote, Macron bonus in return for their ballot. I've got a screenshot of that just there. So an apparent bid not only to mislead, but also to delegitimize the electoral process itself, Sharon.
And Charlotte, how exactly does Storm 1516 work to spread this disinformation?
Well, the distribution chain has evolved over time, but Viginum has identified some overarching key steps that are relevant, and it shows these very nicely here in this diagram. So first of all, the false content is created, which can involve AI or even paid actors. This content is then distributed through social media accounts controlled by operators or even paid accounts. Analysis also suggests that operators write articles including the false content and then publish them in foreign media, mainly in the Middle East and in Africa. Viginum believes that these media outlets are sometimes paid by Storm 1516 operators, as on a handful of occasions the articles published mention branded or sponsored content, as you can see in an example of this false article here. However, it does note that once debunked, these false articles are often deleted by the foreign media outlets concerned. And then finally, these false stories are then further amplified by pro-Russian actors. Sharon.
And Charlotte, do we know who exactly is behind all of this?
Well, for the moment, Sharon, it's not entirely clear who is responsible for what in terms of the preparation of the content and then its distribution, but Viginum has confirmed the existence of links between Storm 1516 and individuals and organizations who are close to the Kremlin. It's thought that a Russian individual called Yuri Koroshenki has funded and coordinated Storm 1516 operations since its inception. He's said to be an officer in the Russian military intelligence service. Another person accused of involvement in Storm 1516 is this man called John Mark Duggan, a former American police officer who was exiled to Russia in 2016. It's thought that he shares Storm 1516 narratives on a network of websites referred to as Copycop.
And Charlotte, can you give us some advice as to how exactly we would go about spotting this kind of disinformation that's spread by the likes of Storm 1516?
Well, admittedly, Sharon, there is not one clear-cut method of doing this, as the distribution methods used by Storm 1516 have grown increasingly sophisticated. And because of this, some of the false narratives that Storm 1516 has spread have reached pretty high levels of online visibility. However, there are several measures we can take. As I mentioned earlier, the operation uses specific social media accounts to spread disinformation, and some of these have been identified by French authorities. One of these is an account referred to as Johnny Midnight on X. And earlier this year, for instance, this account widely shared a false allegation that USAID paid Time magazine $4 million to name Zelensky Person of the Year. So it is useful to be conscious of who has been sharing the content as well as its original source. Next, it's also important to double-check domain names when reading articles online. This is because Copycop, the network of websites linked to Storm 1516 that I mentioned earlier often tries to imitate domain names of reputable news outlets. I have a list of some of them here. And as you can see, this one in particular is very similar to that of BBC News. As, of course, I don't have enough time to go through all of these domain names and all of the various different social media accounts, I'll include a link to all of those on the Truth or Fake section of the France 24 website, where you can also find other useful tips on how to spot misinformation.
Charlotte, thanks so much for all of that. Charlotte Hughes there with tonight's Truth or Fake. Do stay with us for more world news. We'll be right back.